This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're being recorded, so everybody on their best behavior, please. Okay, and welcome everybody and our Nechama condolences to you, Robin. Okay. Yes, so we just had a very raucous Purim, and a big part of that raucousness, if there is such a word, is the noise that's made whenever we say the name of Haman. All right. An unusual minhag, which actually has some issues, some halachic issues, some societal concerns, right? There's a lot going on with it. So I thought we would use today on the heels of Purim. Yesterday was Shushan Purim. The day before was Purim itself. To go through a little bit of that and get a little understanding of where it all came from, why we do what we do. Okay, so we'll see it's actually mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, in Code of Jewish Law, right? That is about 16th century, but its roots go back much earlier than that. We know the Purim story took place at the very end of the Babylonian exile, before our return to Israel and the building of the second temple, which lasted for 420 years and then was again destroyed by the Romans about the year 70 in the CE, in the Common Era. Okay, but we read the Megillat Esther, that's from the Talmud, and we have this, again, unusual minhag of whenever we hear the name Haman, we go a little nutsos. So where does this all come from? Okay, so the topic is Haman, boo. Okay, so let's see where this actually comes from. And probably the earliest source that we have from it is source number one, Rav Tzidkiyahu Harofei, the Shibbolei Haleket, quoting from Rashi. Okay, Rashi, of course, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, Rabban Shel Yisroel, is the classic commentator on our Chumash, on our Torah, on our Nevi'im and Ketuvim, the prophets and scripture, on the Talmud, right? And he says there, I'll just have to translate by underlining what I could. Matzati, I found B'Shem Rabbeinu Shlomo, in the name of Rabbeinu Shlomo, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the Tzadik be of blessed memory. Yesh Mekomot, there are some places, She'omrim, Achar HaBracha, after they say the bracha, meaning we have brachot, blessings that precede the reading of the Megillah, we have the Megillah reading, and then we have the bracha that's said after that. All of those are mentioned in the Talmud, in the Gemara. There are those that after that bracha, they have a piyut na'eh. They have a very nice paragraph that we say. That's we Asho Shanas Yaakov, right? Asher Heini. It begins Asher Heini, that God had cast out our enemies, right? And ends off with the Shanat Yaakov. And included in that is Baruch Mordechai. We bless Mordechai, Brucha Esther, and we also bless Esther, Arur Haman. We curse Haman, Arura Zeresh, and cursed is Zeresh, the wife of the one who caused us so much sorrow, so much anguish. So we say there, underlined in the source sheet, Arur Haman, cursed is Haman, Arura Zeresh, cursed is Zeresh, Umakin Baraglehem. And at that point, what would they do? Not during the Megillah reading, but what would they do during that piyut, that paragraph that said afterwards, when we would mention, cursed is Haman, cursed is Zeresh, makin b'ragleim, al ev. All right, they would clap, they would stamp their feet. Oh, Evan, al Evan, or they knock one stone against another stone. Umashabrin kederot. They would take some earthen vessels, and what would they do? Smash them. Right? Sounds like a Who concert, huh? I start smashing some earthen vessels. Kashamamam, when they heard about Shever, the destruction of Haman and Zeresh, Ula Achers, and after that, Omdin Hatzibor, then everyone would stand up, Umeshabchin Labore, and praise the Creator, Asher Hatziel et Amo Yisrael, for having saved the nation Israel. So the earliest source that we have is making some noise, but doing it not during the reading of the Megillah itself, but rather during the paragraph that is said afterwards. Zipping ahead to the Shulchan Aruch, the 16th century, the Beit Yosef quoted the Levush. We'll see some of those soon. But the Ramah there writes in the Code of Jewish Law on the laws of Purim, he writes there, Od Kotvu. It is also, we have it both in Hebrew, English, everyone can follow, however they're most comfortable. Shenago Atino Kot. The children have the minhag. Today we're all children, right? But the children have the custom, Latzur Tsurat Haman al Eitzim V'Avanim, to draw a picture of Haman on some wood or on a stone, O Lichtov Shem Haman Aleim, or to write the name, Hey Memnun, Haman, on those stones or on those pieces of wood, Ulahakotan Zeh al Zeh, and to smack them one against the other, Kadeshi Shemo. What happens then? Whatever, if you write with some chalk or something onto this stone and you knock the stones together, what happens? You end up blotting out the name that you had written. Al derech, based on the verse that says, Macho timche, God says, we will blot out et zecher Amalek. Amalek represents all those who are fighting against God. Fighting against God, either belief in God or fighting against belief in God, or fighting against the idea that God's involved in this world. Those who want to eradicate God from this world. And we must blot out, the world must become overflowing with knowledge of Hashem, of God in this world. That is the point that we need to be working towards. And Amalek is the antithesis of that, trying to remove God from this world. So we have to blot out this idea of Amalek. Vishem Rishaim Yirakev. And the name of the wicked, Yirakev. The same way we say Zecher, Tzadik, Livracha. The mention of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, is livracha, is for a blessing. Shem Rishaim, the name of the evil, Yirakev, should rot. Umizeh, the Chavetz Chaim, the Ramah writes, from this nishtarvev haminhag, the minhag, the custom has come down. Shemakim Haman kashikornit hamegillah, the Beit HaKnesset. Oh, not when we say that paragraph afterwards, but when we read the name Haman in the Megillah, what do? Makim. We make some noise. That's from the Abu Drum. The Ein Levatel Shum Minhag. Interesting. We'll see this. This will come up a little bit later on also. The Mishabura, the Ramah, adds, Ein Levatel Shum Minhag. We do not cancel, nullify any minhag, any custom. O lilog alav, nor do we ridicule any custom. Ki lo lechinam hukva. It was not for naught that it was established. So already in the Ramah, the Shulchan Aruch, the Ramah, this interesting. I'm sure the Svardim do it also, because it's a type of minhag that would catch on. But the Shulchan Aruch doesn't write about it. right? The Mechaber does not write about it. It's the Ramah, which is the added on gloss of the custom of the Ashkenazim, of the Ashkenaz communities. He's the one who writes about doing this. Now, there are those, right? The Levush, Rav Mordechai Yafa, adds to the minhag number 3, that when Haman's name is said, the listeners should say, Shem Rishaim Yirakev, which means the name of the wicked should rot. But the Mishnah Brewer writes in the Shar HaTzion, we'll see in a minute, that this does not even deserve mention. I'll read it downstairs in the Hebrew, those who could follow, otherwise you'll see the English paraphrases. I did not even write down, this is on his notes on the bottom, his footnotes. In the footnotes he writes, I did not even mention up above what the Magen Avram brought in the name of the Levush, that a person should say the words, Shem, Rishon Yirakev, the name of the wicked should rot, when we mention Haman. One issue is, this might be considered an interruption, right? You're not supposed to interrupt in the Megillah. Even if we'll say this is not considered interruption, because to whom me'inyan shel yom, because this is relevant to what's going on to the whole day. Al kol panim, nevertheless, I didn't write it up above. He said, Yochol itzmoch mizeh kilkul gadol. But a big problem can result from this. People start calling out, Shem Rishayim Yirakev, the name of the wicked should rot, as poor Neil is trying to read the Megillah. What will happen? Shlo yishama az ezotevot min hashliach tzipor. We're not going to hear some of the words of the Baal Koreh if Neil is reading for us. Al yidei zeh v'lo yatsa az b'kriyat Megillah. If you don't hear each word of the Megillah, you have not fulfilled your mitzvah of hearing the Megillah. And that's why, if you've noticed, when we do make noise, we don't call out Shem Risham Yirakev, the name of the wicked should be blotted, but we do make a lot of noise. What does Neil always do? He pauses, but then when he resumes, what does he do? He goes back a word or two. And that way, in case there were any overly eager groggerers, right? So that way, right, we won't miss any of the words. Now, there's a deeper understanding that goes along with this. The Torah tells us that we need to blot out Amalek. We need to remember and blot out that remembrance. So what do? It's not enough to just think about it. We actually read it, right? On Shabbos, 2 weeks, where was it? I'm really confused in terms of time. Last Shabbos, Parshat Zachor. So we read. So there's thought, there's speech, and there's action. See, he writes very, very interestingly. I underlined it on source number 4. Ki ha'aka'a, pounding, clapping, making noise, all of that, hu siman milchama. That is almost like a way of milchama. What's milchama? Battle, war. Al Shem HaKatuv, the Pasuk says, milchama la Hashem ba'amalek, midor dor. There's a battle of a God against Amalek in each and every generation. V'zeu hachomer, that is the overarching physicality. Umahut inyano, but the essence is l'kayem mechia b'foel. We always want to do. I always say, in Judaism, we don't go onto a mountaintop and meditate, and that's how we connect. We do. Judaism understands we are physical beings in a physical world, and therefore we say, Asher Kiddishanu, we become sanctified by our doing, the mitzvotav, right? We don't just believe in God as a creator. Shabbos is the way that we do our belief in God as a creator. So if we have this mitzvah to eradicate this concept of Amalek, this idea of Amalek, and the viewpoint of Amalek that is so pervasive in this world, we need to do something about it. We need to concretize it, put it into an action. V'lo shitit'eh. Don't make a mistake and think shani omer, that I'm saying shahakat Haman hu min Torah. I'm not saying that this is a Torah obligation, right, to bang when we say Haman, but rather call inyan mechia sha'adam oseh. But any type of eradication, of erasing that a person does, hu mekayem, one fulfills the mitzvah aseh, the positive command of zachor, of this remembrance and this eradication of Amalek. The gam haka'ah, he ka'achat mehem. And also this haka'ah, this hitting, also is one of those. That's part of that's part of the picture, part of the package. If you turn the page, very interesting. The Baal HaTurim is one of the fascinating commentators on the Torah. What he does is he deals a lot with gematria. Gematria is the numerical value that each Hebrew letter has, and therefore each word will have a certain gematria. Also, he will bring connections between, it says this word over here, and it says the same word over there, right? And these are only two places in all of Scripture where this word is found. That's why without Hebrew, one is really lost when going through Tanakh, because that is the basis of everything and all the layers that we have. So he points out the words macho emche, which is we must eradicate, right? So let's look at the gematria there. I wrote underneath macho, the first word, mem is 40, chet is 8, hey is 5, 53. Emche is the same exact letters with an aleph. Aleph, of course, is 1. So that's 53 plus 54 equals 107. That, he says, is bigematria. That is the numerical value of Ze Haman. Zion is 5. Zion is 7. Hey is 5. That's 12. Haman, Hey 5. Mem 40. Nun 50. That's 95. 12 plus 95 equals 107. So he says from there we have this hint, this remez, this allusion that the way that we fulfill, or a way that we fulfill this blotting out of Amalek in our day, is through this drowning out or erasing on the stones or on the wood of the Haman that we have in our yearly Purim celebration. Another interesting idea: why did this minhag become so prevalent? Right? Sorry?
It was fun.
It was fun, yeah. Exactly.
And it's unusual.
Yes. So we'll see over here the idea that we know in the Pesach Seder, we do many things at the Pesach Seder in order to keep the kids engaged, right? We give out candy, they steal the afikomen, and then we have to go finding it. Some of us might have an afikomen scope, which is a special apparatus which one uses in order to find the afikomen. Without that, one can never find the afikomen without the afikomen scope, right? So we do all of these things actually, right? We clear off the table, early on, and that's the kids ask manishtana, what's going on? This is not our usual, all the questions that are asked. We do much at Pesach time in order to engage the children. See, he writes over here, I underlined it in Hebrew, I underlined it with the red mark there, Keshem shetiknu chazal, the same way that our sages established, kama tile, halachot v'dinim, mountains, tile is mountains, heaps of laws and customs, b'layla shel Pesach, and the night of Pesach. Why? Rak lasot heker latino coat, right? In order to make it something that will be remembered, that will keep the kids alive, engaged. Valo gam b'mikra Megillah. So too by Megillah also the children were part of that miracle. Therefore it's proper to make for them something to keep them engaged. Veheker v'lazot, and therefore kasher yamdu pashkacha yitera ad shiagi lehem hatur. Right, so that way they're going to stay involved until they reach the point Asher Yizkar Shami Chuso Shalot Rashim Chodet Shemo Shichol Lahakot Lakashkesh, and we allow them to make noise and bang on things. Right, gets a little out of hand sometimes. Mitov Shalo Lishma Bal Lishma. That way they have. That's a concept we have. If you're doing it first for not the most purest of motives, you'll come do the right thing. If your motives are not perfectly pure, if we're going to wait till our motives are perfectly pure, we might be waiting our whole life. Do the right thing, do the good thing, even without the most pure of motives. And we hope that as you do good things, your motives will also purify along the way. Sheyishma'u et Kriyat Megillah, and then they'll come to hear the Megillah word for word. And that's why we say it's the tinokot. It's the children that do this, the same way on Leil Pesach that we arrange some certain halachot in order to keep the kids engaged. However, there are a number of objections. There are a number of issues that come up from our doing this, halachic issues that come up, and we will address them right now. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyah bidbaro. Amen. Okay. The A, B, C, D, and then we'll come around to E. The Magen Avram, A, implies the reason why Maharil didn't make noise by Haman was he was concerned about missing words from the Megillah. We mentioned that before. We had seen that before in the Sharat Sion, right? And therefore you're missing words. And the way to fulfill the mitzvah is by hearing the entire Megillah. He notes that the Balkori should pause while the tzibor is clapping, which is, of course, what our Balkori does. He also states that the listener who misses words should read the words out of the Chumash or the booklet that we have and thereby catch up. The Megillah must be read in proper order. So if you miss a word, you need to start reading what you missed and then catch up to where the reader is. But you can't just read from your booklet. It needs to be read or heard from a proper Megillah, which means written on the proper parchment by a scribe in the proper manner. But as long as most of the Megillah, meaning 50.1%, was heard from a klap, you are okay. And therefore, Neil, of course, is reading it from a klap. And if you miss a word, so you could read it from wherever you're reading it, by heart or from the booklet or from a chumash, whatever it is, and thereby catch up. This is based on the idea that when one could read up to 50% of Megillah by heart or without a Megillah. So one concern is it will cause people to miss words that we saw before. that the Mishnah Berurah brought in the Shar HaTzion, and the way that we deal with that objection is by having the Baal Koreh pause, as I mentioned before, not just pause, but he goes back a word or two and continues reading after that mention of Haman's name.
It doesn't matter that you repeat some words.
No, repeating is not going to be an issue.
Repeating is not a problem.
Correct.
Evidently, that's the problem.
Correct.
Okay.
B, the Purim Megillah notes a different issue with klapping for Haman. It's a great word, isn't that klapping? K-L-A-P-P. The issue of interruption, it's not a clap, it's a klap. The issue of interruption doesn't only apply to speaking. There's another issue over here we mentioned before of a hefsek, of an interruption. Right? We said before that we don't have the custom to call out Shem Rishon Yirakeh, the name of the wicked should be erased, should rot, because you don't want to have a hefsek. Well, besides the interruption of speaking, there's also a problem of interruption, taking a break between words that is longer than usual. As such, having the Baal Koreh wait for the tzibur to klap is not lechatchila. That's another issue that's brought up. But we certainly, the minhag, and we'll come back to, we'll see in E, the minhag is to do this, even though it does create, right? But ideally, it should be more of a silent interruption and not a talking interruption. C, Rabbi Haman HaLevi, 1565. In his time, klapping for Haman caused tension with the non-Jews, who perceived it as Jews being against non-Jews in general. They didn't take it as an anti-Haman stance. They took it as an anti-non-Jewish stance. Right? Now, there are a couple of things that we've done out of such concerns. Right? Normally, we need to do a mitzvah as early as we can. Zrizin makdimin lemitzvot is a rule that we have. Those who have their zealousness, they do the mitzvahs as early as possible. We wait a whole year for Rosh Hashanah to blow shofar. We think we should blow shofar right early in the morning. But out of concern that the nations will think that we are, conspiring and a call to arms to go to battle against them, so we push it off. We push it off till after Torah, not in Shachar, until after Torah reading, to Musaf. So we do have such concerns. We find the rabbis canceled certain mitzvot, not only because of concern for an actual pogrom, but it might cause tension. And therefore it is worthwhile to cancel this minhag as well, he wrote. Again, that's in 1565, but if we're still doing it, then even in 1565, this was clearly not canceled. The Rav Palaji writes, D, another concern. People in his time would go sort of heavyweight on this, would bring axes, other heavy-duty tools, right? We don't want someone coming and starting to, Haman starts hacking at the, our posts over here, or the walls, or the tables, right? Things can get a little bit out of hand. It is possible that the axe head or something else will fly off the handle, right? And hit someone, right? So that's why, that's another concern. In our days, we're pretty low key on this. I have a louder one that I got when I was in Mexico, but nevertheless, there's no great danger to anyone, right? There was some bullhorns that some kids doing, which was a little bit loud for those of us whose ears haven't been to a rock concert in a while, but nevertheless, that concerns. So there are concerns. Some of them societal concerns, some of them property, health, safety concerns, some of them halachic concerns. The not hearing every word, that we do address. The hefsek, the interruption, that we don't address. And It seems that Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people, have decided that it's better to have this and keep everyone engaged, even though it does create a bit of a hefsek, right? Not a bona fide hefsek that would invalidate our fulfillment of the mitzvah, but a bit of a hefsek. But he points out something very interesting. If you go back to page 1, where we quoted the Mishnah, the Ramah, the Ramah often writes v'yesh nohagin. That's in the end of source number 2. He often writes, and there is such a custom, and he leaves it at that. Over here, he comes in very, very firmly, and he concluded, from this is derived the custom. Mizen nishtarvei v'minhag shemakim Haman kishakorin et Megillah, that we make noise, we strike Haman when they're reading the Megillah bebeit HaKnesset, in the shul, and then he puts in the ein levatel shum minhag. It is not for us to nullify, to cancel any minhag, o lilog or to mock it, to minimize it. Ki lo lechinam hukva. It was not established lechinam. It's not for naught that it was established. So, Rav Chaim Eliezer Deutsch writes, notes some of the objections and suggests that Ramah was sensitive to these objections. Normally, when Ramah presents a minhag, a custom, he doesn't tell us that we have to keep minhagim. Here he specifically said to do so because the minhag does have room for objection. Nevertheless, he writes very, very clearly and emphatically, one should keep the minhag despite these different objections. I'll just share one last idea that we have. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not keep everybody? 1 second. Yeah. There it is over there. So just one other idea that's mentioned. Oh, hi, Kathy. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm back over here with the screen in front of me. Okay. So on Purim, we have a custom to do the grada, right? Come sit over here. Come sit over here, Ken. That's it. You come late, you have to sit at the teacher's table. Here you go, Ken. No, you're not going to block anything. So we shake our grager. Grager is, I guess, Yiddish for a klapper. I don't know what that is. Okay, and on Hanukkah we spin the dreidel, right? So there are those that note the dreidel, we hold it on top and we spin, right? Here we hold underneath and we spin. So there are those that suggest that here the impetus came from below, meaning by Purim, it was the 3-day fast. It was our recognition that we had to do teshuvah, that we had to return to Hashem. We had to build up our own spirituality. So the impetus came from below, and then the heavens above made things spin around. But we needed to make that impetus. Whereas by Hanukkah, there it came from above and sent us spinning. There it was not as much our zechut. And the teshuvah, the return that we did on Purim, it's very interesting. One of probably the most known verse of Megillat Esther is the verse that we say every Saturday night when we're making Havdalah. Oh, yeah. We say, La Yehudim, Haita, Ora, V'simcha, V'sason, V'yikar. For the Jews, there was Ora, light, Simcha, happiness, Sason, rejoicing, and Yikar, and honor. The Gemara says Ora, light,
Torah.
Torah.
Yeah.
Simcha, v'samachta b'chagecha, holidays.
Oh, okay.
Sason, rejoicing, that's a verse, that's a word that is said in regard to Brit Milah, regard to circumcision. V'yikar, and honor, that's the tefillin that we have. So I believe it's the Belzer Rebbe asks the question, if that's the case, so why doesn't the pasuk read, and the Jews had Torah, holidays, circumcision, and tefillin? Why does it say the Jews had light, happiness, rejoicing, and honor? And he explains that it's not that before that we didn't have Torah, we didn't have holidays, we weren't studying Torah, we weren't celebrating holidays, we weren't performing circumcision, we weren't donning our tefillin. It would be incorrect to say the Jews now had Torah, holidays, circumcision, and tefillin, but we had gotten somewhat jaded with what we were doing. And this was that wake-up call that now we were alive, we were vibrant. And now it was clear to us that Torah was not a subject. Torah was light. Torah was illumination. Torah is what gives us our path in life. And a holiday was not, oh no, Pesach's coming, I have to start cleaning. But holidays were simcha, rejoicing. Wow, another holiday is coming, can't wait. Brit Milah was sason, was rejoicing, circumcision. And tefillin was not, oh, I gotta get my tefillin on before it's too late, right? But it was regality. It was yakar. It was honor. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be able to do. So what changed was not the actual performance or non-performance, but rather what changed was our attitude, our connection to it, and our taking it and bringing it to life.
We
And
became aware of, before we weren't aware. And
I don't know if we weren't aware, Chayrifka. We were aware what we should be doing, but at times we get a little bit jaded, and it's hard to feel it. And this is what gave.
Okay, we're not fully aware, but okay.
Yeah, this is what gave us that full energy in it. And the Gemara says that when there are 2 months of Adar, or this year we only had 1 Adar, when there are 2 Adars, we celebrate Purim in the second Adar, even though normally we have a general rule, at your first opportunity, that's when you should do something. And the Gemara says the reason we do the second Adar, one of the reasons given, is we want to have Purim and Pesach back to back. We want to have Geula, redemption, and redemption back to back. So let us all go from this redemption of Purim into the redemption of Pesach, and may it lead speedily to the full redemption with the coming of the Messiah, B'mheira v'yameinu, speedily in our days, and let us say Amen. Yes, Chaya Rivka.
Maybe I missed it, but are there any other holidays or any other ways we do this? We interject sounds or things like we do.
Yeah, well, look, we have some Torah mitzvot, right? Certainly shofar is,
Well, you're right,
right?
but
It's certainly
not like
doing that.
brewing or-
Yeah, so, look, most of our mitzvot are experiential, right? Matzah, we're eating the matzah, drinking the wine, eating the bitter herbs. We're sitting in the sukkah, we're shaking the lulav, we're blowing the shofar.
It's a negative expression.
That's interesting.
All
Yes,
that
yes, but a
positive.
negative expression about something that's negative, I think, is a positive, right? A negative expression about something negative, right? It's almost like, in mathematics, right? A negative times a negative equals a positive, right? I don't view this as a negative. I view this as a push for the positive, right? But this is, look, this is rabbinic, and the whole Purim is a rabbinic holiday, and this is a custom that developed later on top of this rabbinic holiday, right? So there are certainly many layers that we have of this, but that is interesting that this is more of a throwing rotten tomatoes, right, as opposed to a coronation blowing of the shofar. That is true. Hello, oh, Lisa's here. Good. Yes, Dove.
Okay, so we say boo Haman, but the deep meaning is Haman put us back on track.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The Gemara says that Achashverosh taking off his signet ring and giving that to Haman, that had a greater effect on our teshuvah, on our return, than the 48 prophets and 7 prophetesses who came to try to, But when there's a certain fear factor, well, right, we say no atheist in a foxhole, right? So then all of a sudden, right, that was the kick in the pants that we, so to speak, that we needed. Okay. Very good, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Good to see everybody. We've got Robin and Kathy here with us. Okay. Maybe we should reach out. Have you heard from Ateret?
I spoke to her a couple of days ago.
Okay, good. When she's not here, I get a little bit nervous.
Coming out to visit. She's probably there already.
Nice. Okay, so she's busy with her daughters. I'm sure that keeps her going.
She's not on oxygen anymore.
Wow. Meaning any added oxygen.
Yeah.
Any more oxygen than we're on. Because that would be something. We're all on oxygen. Sorry, just being me. Okay, good seeing you guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.